Picture a kitchen at 6 in the morning in 1953. One income paid for everything in it. There was not a single machine running anywhere. And yet the house was already ahead of the day. The milk was cooling in a box on the porch. The floor had a deep shine on it, and the woman moving through that kitchen never once felt behind. That is the promise of what follows. 15 vanished household routines that kept the American home running like clockwork on a single paycheck and almost no appliances. The reason it worked has a name, and you are going to hear that name more than once before the count is over. It was the rhythm. Hit that subscribe button, because the rhythm is about to change how you think about every hour you spend keeping your own home. None of this was defeated by something better. It was quietly sold away, traded for a convenience that promised your grandmother freedom and handed her a busier life instead. Let us count down the 15 routines that convenience taught the whole country to forget. Number 15, bluing the whites. In the laundries of the 1950s, a small blue bottle sat beside the rinse, and your grandmother measured it out by the drop. A brand called Mrs. Stewart's had been selling it since the 1880s. Here is why it worked, and it has nothing to do with bleaching. White cloth does not stay white. With every wash and every hour in the sun, it drifts toward yellow. And yellow is what the eye reads as dingy and old. Blue sits directly opposite yellow, so a trace of blue laid over the cloth cancels the yellow cast and throws back more light, and the eye reads that cooler, white as clean. The method was exact. A few drops stirred into cold water first, never poured in straight, then added to the final rinse until the water turned the palest sky blue. Done right, the sheets came off the line looking new, with no blue tint at all, only a whiteness the neighbors noticed. Every box of brightening detergent sold today is selling that same trick of the eye. If the bottle made the whites bright, the line decided how long the whole wash would last. Number 14, hanging the wash on the line in a set order. Laundry was not flung up at random. It went up in a sequence the woman of the house could have done in her sleep. Sheets and white shirts where the sun struck hardest. Colors in the shade, everything pinned to overlap and save both pins and space. The order was working chemistry, not fuss. Sunlight is a mild bleach and a natural killer of the bacteria that turn cloth sour. So the whites went where the light was strongest, and stubborn stains were laid open to fade. The trick passed down was to hang a shirt by the tail, never the shoulders, so the pin marks fell where no one would see them. There was a clean smell to cotton dried in moving air that no machine has matched. Today, a dryer does the job in 40 minutes, in the dark, and quietly bakes in every stain the sun would have lifted out. If the line was how the house pushed laundry out into the world, the next routine was how the world came back to the door. Number 13, returning the rinsed milk bottles to the porch box. Every night, the empty glass bottles went back out, rinsed clean, into an insulated box by the door, and before dawn, the milkman swapped them for full ones. This was no quaint extra. According to the Department of Agriculture, more than half of all the milk Americans drank in that decade came to them by doorstep delivery. The system worked because the glass went in a circle. A single bottle could make more than 20 round trips, washed and sterilized with heat and filled again. So the family paid for the milk and only borrowed the container. The recipe on the customer's end was simple. Drink it, rinse it, set it out at night, leave a note in the neck for anything extra. There was a sound to a 50s morning that is gone now, the soft clink of glass on a cold porch. Today, that milk comes in a plastic jug you buy once and throw away, and doorstep delivery has fallen to a fraction of 1%. Reusing the bottle was thrift you could hear. The next habit was thrift you learned with your hands. Number 12. The mending basket. By the lamp each evening sat a basket of clothes that were not thrown away, but waiting to be made whole. Socks were darned over a smooth wooden egg, slipped inside the heel. New thread woven across the hole one way and then the other. That weave was the whole point. A knot would have rubbed the foot raw and pulled loose in a week, but a woven darn rebuilt the actual fabric of the sock so it kept its shape. Shirts got the same care. When a collar frayed at the fold, it was unpicked, turned over, and sewn back down with the worn edge hidden underneath. And the shirt looked new for another year. The method was patient. A needle and a wooden egg and 20 quiet minutes. Today, a sock with a hole goes in the bin because a fresh bag costs less than the thread and the time, which is exactly the arithmetic that was sold to us. Mending kept what touched the body whole. The next routine kept the body itself healthy, in a place no one thought to look. Number 11. Airing the bed and turning the mattress. The bed was never made the moment your grandmother rose from it. She threw the covers all the way back, opened the window, and let the bed stand bare and breathing for an hour. This was the opposite of laziness. A sleeping body gives off more than a pint of moisture in a single night, through breath and through the skin, and all of it soaks down into the sheets and the mattress. Make the bed at once, and you seal that damp inside, and damp warmth is precisely the climate that dust mites and mildew need to thrive. Throw the covers back instead, and the moisture evaporates into the room, and the tiny creatures that feed in a mattress are left to dry out. Every few weeks, the mattress itself was turned and flipped, end for end, so no single patch wore into a hollow. Today, we make the bed the instant we stand up and call the stale result tidy. Pause on something here, because the same quiet hand is behind every routine so far. None of these habits died because someone built something better. They were marketed away. Consider what actually happened. The supermarket spread across the country and turned the doorstep milkman into an expensive habit until the half of all milk that once arrived by delivery collapsed toward nothing. The frost-free refrigerator erased the defrosting chore, and the wash and wear fabrics of the late 1950s made the iron and the starch optional. Even the corner store was born from this turn. A Texas ice company, watching home refrigerators kill its old business, began stocking milk and bread beside the ice, stayed open from early to late, and in 1952 renamed itself 7-Eleven. None of this was a villain twirling a mustache. It was design. A busier, more convenient life was easier to sell your grandmother than a rhythm she already owned, and every routine they replaced came with something new to buy. Hold on to that as the count goes deeper, because the pattern only sharpens. Number 10. Ironing everything with cooked starch. The iron in a 50s household did not stop at shirts. Sheets, pillowcases, tablecloths, even handkerchiefs went under it, and most were starched first. Starch was cooked on the stove from a little powder and water into a thin paste, thinned again and worked into the cloth before pressing. The starch did real work. It stiffened the surface of the fabric so that dirt and body oil sat on top of the starch instead of sinking into the fibers, which meant the next wash carried the grime away with the starch and left the cloth itself cleaner and longer lived. A starched pillowcase also held its crease, and shrugged off wrinkles for days. The method asked for patience, a sprinkle of water. A cloth rolled damp and left an hour so the moisture spread even. A freshly ironed sheet has a cool, smooth feel that a permanent press sheet has never matched. Today, we choose fabrics so we never have to iron, and we lost the layer that was protecting the cloth. Starch protected the cloth from the dirt it met. The next routine protected the machine quietly working hardest in the house. Number 9, defrosting the refrigerator. The refrigerator of the 1950s was not the patient box in your kitchen now. It had to be emptied and thawed by hand every few weeks because frost crept over its coils and would not leave on its own. It was switched off, everything taken out, pans of hot water set inside, and then a wait for the ice to slide loose. The reason was pure physics. Every time the door opened, warm, damp air drifted in and froze onto the coldest metal, and that growing coat of frost acts like a blanket. Even a quarter of an inch of it insulates the coils from the air. They are meant to chill, so the motor runs longer and longer to do the same work, burning power and wearing itself out. Scrape it clean, and the machine breathed again. Today, the appliance does this silently and forever, and most people have never once seen the frost that used to govern the whole kitchen. If the frost was the enemy you could not see, the next routine fought one you carried in on your own 2 feet. Number 8, beating and airing the rugs outdoors. On a clear day, the rugs came up off the floor, went over a line in the yard, and were struck with a woven beater until the air around them clouded. It looked like simple dusting. It was something more exact. The real harm to a rug is not on the surface. It is the fine grit and sand that works its way down to the base of the pile, and every footstep then grinds those hard particles against the fibers like sandpaper from below. Beating the rug while it hung free knocked that buried grit out before it could saw the wool apart. And a rug treated this way lasted not years, but decades. The method was rhythmic and physical, both sides, top to bottom, until nothing more flew loose. Today, we run a vacuum over the top and leave the grinding grit exactly where it does the most harm. Then replace the worn carpet and call it ordinary wear. The rug was protected by taking it outside. The floor beneath it was protected by sealing it in. Number 7, waxing and buffing the floors. The linoleum in a 50s kitchen shone, and the shine was not for show. A paste wax was spread thin. A brand like Johnson's was in half the cupboards in the country, left to haze over, and then buffed by hand or with a weighted brush until it gleamed. The gloss was really armor. Linoleum is vulnerable where its seams meet, and standing water will creep in and lift and crack it. So the wax laid a hard, sealed skin over the whole floor that took the scuffs and the spills and the foot traffic in place of the linoleum itself. When the wax wore thin, you stripped it and laid it fresh, and the floor underneath stayed perfect for 30 or 40 years. The work had a warm scent and a slow back and forth to it. Today, most floors are sold as no wax, sealed at the factory in a finish you cannot renew. So when it finally wears through, there is nothing to do but tear the whole floor out. Sealing the floor took one product and a strong arm. The next routine ran the entire house on almost nothing at all. Number 6, the homemade cleaning kit. Under the 50s sink, there was no wall of bottles, each one promising to clean a single thing. There were a few cheap staples, and your grandmother knew exactly which to reach for, because she understood the chemistry without ever calling it that. It comes down to two opposites. Hard water leaves behind mineral and lime deposits and soap scum, and those are dissolved by an acid, which is why vinegar or a cut lemon wiped the crust off a faucet or a kettle. Grease is the opposite problem, and grease is broken apart by a base, which is why washing soda or a little ammonia in water cut through a greasy stove when scrubbing alone would not. An acid for the chalky deposits, a base for the grease, and a box of baking soda to scour gently in between. The recipes were spoken, not printed. A cup of vinegar and water for the windows, a paste of baking soda for the sink, a cut lemon dipped in salt to bring tarnished copper back to a shine. Today, we own a different spray for every surface, and most of them are one of those same two chemicals, sold back to us at 10 times the price. Stop here, because this is the idea underneath all of it, the one named at the very start, the rhythm. Every routine so far shares a single hidden logic, and it is the logic of doing a small thing on a fixed schedule, so that a large thing never goes wrong. The bed aired every morning never grew mold. The rug beaten every season never wore out. The floor waxed on its turn never cracked. The frost scraped on its day never strained the motor. The collar turned in time never became a thrown-away shirt. Nothing in the house was ever allowed to reach a crisis, because the crisis was prevented while it was still small and cheap and quick to fix. That is what people mean when they say those homes ran like clockwork. It was not that your grandmother worked harder than you, though she did. It was that the work was spread across the days in a steady rhythm, a little every day, so it never piled into the heap a modern house becomes the moment we fall a week behind. The rhythm was the technology, and the last routines are where that rhythm becomes a way of life. Number 5, opening the windows to air the whole house each morning. Before air conditioning hummed in every wall, the day began with a deliberate act. The windows were thrown open room to room, often on opposite sides of the house, and the night's stale air was let pour out while the cool morning air poured through. There was real reason in it. A closed house full of sleeping, breathing, cooking people grows heavy overnight with moisture and the faint sourness of everything that happened the day before. And a cross draft of fresh air clears all of it in minutes and carries the damp away before it can settle into walls and fabric. The method was nothing more than timing and a pair of open windows. 10 minutes while the coffee brewed. A house aired this way had a particular lightness you could walk into. Today, we seal the windows shut and run a machine that cools the same trapped air around and around, and we have forgotten that the cheapest fresh air in the world is already outside the glass. Fresh air reset the house each morning. The next routine reset the kitchen for the whole week. Number 4, the Sunday roast and the week of planned leftovers. The large cut of meat on a Sunday was not just a feast, it was the cornerstone of a plan. It was roasted whole, and from that one piece the week unfolded by design, sliced cold on Monday, folded into a hash or a pie midweek, and the bones simmered down at the end into a soup that left nothing behind. The thinking was quietly brilliant. One large cut was cheaper by the pound than many small meals, and planning the week around it meant the cook always knew what came next, and the family threw almost nothing away. The method lived in her head as a rotation: roast to cold, cuts to a made dish to the broth, each step using what the last had left. There was a comfort in knowing Tuesday's supper before Tuesday arrived. Today, we decide at 6 each night what to eat, often a meal that arrives in a bag, and we spend more and waste more for the privilege of never having a plan. Planning the meat across the week was discipline. Baking the bread that carried it took real skill. Number 3, Saturday bread baking. Once a week, often on a Saturday, the kitchen filled with the smell of bread because the household's loaves were baked at home rather than bought. It was a half day of work tied to the rhythm of the week. The flour and water and yeast mixed and left to rise, knocked down and shaped and risen again, then baked in a batch that fed the family for days. The reason ran deeper than thrift, though homemade bread cost a fraction of the bought loaf. The cook knew exactly what was in it, 4 plain ingredients and nothing she could not name. And the loaf kept and toasted and held together in a way the soft, sliced bread of the new supermarkets never quite did. The method was patient and forgiving. A recipe felt more than measured, the dough judged by hand. The smell of it alone anchored a house. Today, bread comes sliced in a bag, soft and full of words you cannot pronounce, and the weekly ritual that filled the house with that smell has all but vanished. If baking the bread fed the family through the week, the next routine fed them through the winter and through the hard years. Number 2, canning and preserving the harvest. In late summer, when the garden and the markets overflowed, your grandmother spent long, hot days putting food into jars, tomatoes and beans and peaches and pickles, sealed and stored on cellar shelves against the cold months. This was the deepest self-reliance in the whole house, and the science was sound. The food was heated hot enough to kill the organisms that cause spoilage, and the lid pulled down into an air-tight seal as it cooled, so no new air and nothing living could get back in. And a jar put up in August was safe to open in February. The method was exacting and taken seriously. Clean jars, the right time at a hard boil, the satisfying ping of a lid sealing as it cooled on the counter. A cellar lined with full jars was a particular kind of wealth, a wall of colored glass that meant the family would eat well no matter what the year brought. Her pantry, not the supermarket, was the family's insurance. Today, that security comes from a store open at all hours, and most people have never tasted anything they sealed with their own hands. Every routine in the count has pointed at one thing, and now it is time to name it. The single habit that made all the others possible. Number 1, the schedule itself, the day of the week that each task belonged to. Ask anyone who kept a home in those years, and the same words come back almost like a verse. Wash on Monday, iron on Tuesday, mend on Wednesday, market on Thursday, clean on Friday, bake on Saturday, rest on Sunday. This was not a cute saying stitched on a tea towel, though it ended up there too. It was the operating system of the entire household, and it is the reason every other routine in the count could exist at all. Think about what the schedule actually did. It took the enormous, formless work of running a home and broke it into pieces small enough that no single day was crushing, then fixed each piece to a day so that nothing was forgotten and nothing was put off until it became a disaster. The whites were always bright because Monday was always wash day. The mending never grew into a mountain because Wednesday caught it every week. The cellar was full in winter because the work was done in its season. Your grandmother almost never faced a crisis because the schedule had quietly prevented the crisis a week or a month before it could form. That is the secret the whole count has been circling. The home of the 1950s ran like clockwork, not because the women in it had some patience we have lost, and not because the work was lighter, for it was far heavier than ours. It ran like clockwork because it ran on a clock. A little every day in its turn. We did not lose these 15 routines because we grew smarter. We lost them when we traded the rhythm for the promise that convenience would carry it for us, and then discovered that the machines could do the tasks but could not keep the rhythm. Only a person can do that. Your grandmother knew it in her hands, and it is waiting to be picked up again. So here is what to do with all of this, and it is not to remake your whole life by Monday. Pick one. Try a single routine for a week and feel what it does. The little bottle of bluing on your dingy whites. The bed left open and breathing while you make the coffee. The few cheap staples under the sink instead of the wall of bottles. Start with one. I will tell you what happened when I did. I tried the homemade cleaning kit for a month, nothing but vinegar, washing soda, a lemon, and a box of baking soda. And I cleared 7 different sprays out from under my sink and never missed a single one. The windows came up cleaner. The kitchen smelled like nothing instead of like chemicals. And the whole experiment cost less than one of the bottles I threw out. It changed how I see that cupboard for good. Now I want to hear from you, and I want you to settle something for me. Tell me in the comments which one you are going to try first, and let us see which wins. Is it the bottle of bluing that pulls the most of you in? Or is it the simple act of leaving your bed open to the morning air? I have a guess, but the comments will decide it. Try one this week. Keep it the next. That is all the rhythm ever was. The rhythm your grandmother kept without ever calling it a secret. Still there, waiting in the bones of an ordinary day.